Hey, and welcome to the Meditations and Musings podcast. I'm Elena Lipson. I'm a mama, I'm a wife, and I'm the founder of the Divine Self-Care Circle membership and the Virtual Retreat Academy. I don't believe that you have to sacrifice your body, your health, or your family in order to create true abundance and prosperity. I believe in living based on the divine feminine metrics of success, and these include pleasure, play, ease, grace, and a slower pace. Each week, I'll bring you 1 to 2 new episodes. One of these will be a guided meditation that you don't have to do on the meditation pillow, and the other will be a conversation to help you access your inner wisdom, to ignite abundance, and inspire others to do the same. I invite you to join me on this journey back to the magic of a divinely aligned and well cared for you. And now, join me for today's episode.
Hello and welcome to today's Divine Self-Care Meditations and Musings podcast. This is Elena Lipson, your host and your Divine Self-Care mentor. Today we are talking about the dance of grief and gratitude. I asked my friends on Facebook and some listeners what they wanted to have the next meditation be about, and this one was the first request. And to be honest, at first I really loved it, and then I was resisting it a little bit because grief is a tough thing to talk about, but I do talk about it in my own life and my own experiences, and I've learned to see it in a way that I describe it like the title suggests. I describe it as a dance, because when you're dancing, you're moving different directions, the beat of the music changes, you're feeling different feelings, and that is what grief and gratitude feel like to me. And today I'm looking at it through the lens of the divine feminine metric of grace. Grace to me is this sense of presence, a sense of trusting, a sense that there is something bigger happening that you might not understand, and that it can suck sometimes. That's life, you know. Life gets messy, life gets chaotic, life gets dirty. Life also is beautiful and phenomenal and awe-inspiring. And it can happen literally days apart from each other. The grief and the gratitude can live so close to each other that you might not even be able to tell when you've snuck from one to the other. And sometimes it's very clear that you're in grief, but it doesn't always present as simply as we like to think. So my question to you to hold in your heart and in your mind is, can you practice grief the way you are taught by the self-help movement to practice gratitude, consciously, on purpose, and as a pathway to evolution, expansion, and healing? So I want you to hold that question in your mind, and I'll give you 5 ways that I believe can help you to move through and practice grief. Now, I just had a really profound and acute example of how grief and gratitude can dance together, and I'll give you 2 examples from my own life. Last weekend, my family was invited to a bat mitzvah, which is a milestone in a young Jewish person's life where they are celebrated in a transition from childhood to adulthood. It's done at age 13. So it's not that they're driving, and it's not that they can now buy a mortgage or even vote. What it is a sense of responsibility, a sense of coming into your own awareness, a sense of service. And so part of a bat mitzvah is all about doing some social service project and really acknowledging the people in your life for all that they've given you, acknowledging your community, becoming part of an active member of your community. It's really beautiful. I never had one, but my sister did have one. But anyway, we went to this beautiful bat mitzvah ceremony, and it was so touching and so beautiful. I was so grateful to be there. I've known this young lady since she was just about a year old, and now to watch her move into this gorgeous, smart, strong, sophisticated, critical thinking, emotionally intelligent, beautiful young lady. It was an honor to be there. There was definitely a little grief involved because it was like that sunrise, sunset moment, I'm like, oh my gosh, time is passing by, and I'm watching my own son, and he's about to turn 13 as well. And so a little bit of, mama grief in there. But it was a really joyous, wonderful occasion filled with food and dancing and celebration and storytelling and all of that. Now, 2 days later, I'm getting emotional, excuse me. It's all coming up, right? We're all these emotional beings. And so even talking about things can really let the emotions flow. So here I go. Whatever comes up, whatever happens, happens. We will go into a grief and gratitude meditation in a little bit. So I invite you to, as you're listening to me, maybe get into a space where you can close your eyes and really go into this meditation, because it's a really powerful one. So again, 2 days later, after this bat mitzvah, in the same exact location, we went to a funeral just a little bit ways away from the actual celebration hall. It was in a synagogue, and the funeral was not too far away. And the funeral was for a family member, someone that we adore and someone that we have gotten to know really well over the last 12 years. And she has been a very close part of our lives, and someone who really took us into her home and into our lives when we first moved here to Bellingham. And she was beloved by so many. And she was 90, just about 91. So lived a very full life. Her presence was loving and compassionate and gentle and fierce and all of these things in between. She was incredibly, incredibly inspiring in her community, in our lives. And it was just a loss. But the interesting thing about this particular loss is I've never experienced a conscious passing before. Someone who knew it was time to go, and someone who was ready to go and consciously aware that their life was coming, their physical life was coming to an end. So we actually got a chance to say goodbye to her and spend time with her. And it was very, I guess the word I'll use is it felt very odd, because up until that point, the deaths in my life were very dramatic and very violent sometimes and very unexpected. In my teen years, 3 of my good friends lost one of their parents very dramatically and suddenly. And then I lost my dad. I'll talk a little bit more about that. But this particular death was very conscious and very sweet and very amazing. So here we are saying goodbye to her, and meant to feel grief, right, traditionally. But here we were feeling intense gratitude for the situation and for having the opportunity to connect with her and for all of the incredible experiences we'd had with her. So, and then after the funeral, we went to the same exact location where we had this celebration just 2 days before. And in the same room, there were stories and there was celebration and there was food. And it was this real interesting, both sides of the mirror, right? One is looking forward into a life of celebration and possibility and all the places you'll go, right? It's sort of the idea of behind the bat mitzvah. And the funeral was this other side of the mirror, was looking back on a life well lived, a life that was not devoid of its own grief and sadness and loss, but also amazing connections and creation. And she was just an incredible woman who actually was the founder of an early childhood learning center. And she was very political and very involved. And she got me to go on Alzheimer walks with her. And I mean, it's just incredible. She was an amazing, amazing woman. She was this type of woman who would get down on the floor and play with our son when he was little, and she was in her 70s and 80s, so she just was a no excuses kind of person. She was incredible. And so both sides of the mirror, within 48 hours, we were celebrating life from the early part of it, and then celebrating life from the far end of it. And of course, death does not delineate. It happens in all different times of life. So as I mentioned, I myself lost my dad when I was 24, and he died very suddenly. He was 53, so very young, only 10 years older than I am right now. So in the scheme of things, very young. And he had a young son, and me, I wasn't married yet. And so there was a lot that he didn't see. And his death in that instant, in that moment, a very visceral, primal reaction that I had never expected in my own self was this, like a demonstration of grief that I didn't even know I was capable of. As I said, I'd experienced death in our own family, and my dear friends who lost a parent, I was with them by their sides and through the whole thing. And, it was very, very different than the way I experienced it when it was happening to me. I literally, when I got the call, I literally went to my knees and did this sort of primal sound that I can't even quite remember anymore. But I was at work, and so my coworkers around me didn't know whether I was laughing or crying or what. They were just were like, "What happened? What happened?" So it created this sort of rip in my world and perception, right? And then from that moment, I felt this weird combination of numb and denial and like reality. And it was very, very confusing and also very, very real. Everything was very vivid. I was very present, right? So, and then I remember I had to fly to New York for the funeral, and just a lot happened over the next few weeks. And I remember over starting that moment, really ongoing, it took a long time to really not feel this intensity, was feeling these waves of grief for the physical loss of my dad, right? And throughout the time, it felt like even as I was feeling the deep sense of grief, there were also these small pinpoints of light coming through, of gratitude, because I kept having these memories of good times together when I was younger. And those tiny little pinpoints of light have gotten bigger over time, meaning I can let more of the gratitude light into the grief now, because the visceral reaction starts to lessen, right? Especially if you process it. I let myself cry, I let myself really feel it. I remember sitting at work and just having this wave of tears run over me, and I had to get up and kind of walk around the building and be outside. And so I let myself do that. I didn't hold it in. I actually could not hold it in. It was so intense that I could not hold it in. So that was almost 20 years ago, right? And so sometimes grief is very intense and in the moment, but the thing about grief is that it's also a lifelong journey, right? Because not only is it sad in the moment that you're losing this person physically, but there's also this ongoing loss. So last year, I was hosting a retreat with my two business partners in Tulum, Mexico. And one of the days happened to be my dad's birthday. And I noted, usually I don't notice dates when I'm teaching a retreat. I just sort of get lost in the moment. But I recognized that it was the 4th, and I knew our itinerary for the day. And I just started thinking about my dad more than I had usually. And it's been so long that, I haven't had very many intense grief moments, just sort of thinking about him and trusting that his spirit sees us and just really getting into the spirituality of it. But that day I got really sad and I just kept thinking of him. And of course, no coincidence, I ended up sitting next to one of the incredible ladies at our retreat named Donna, who actually works with grief and with clients and has this beautiful, intense work that she does around processing grief. And of course, it was her that I ended up sitting next to. And we started talking, and she sort of reflected back to me that, yeah, of course you're feeling grief. And I was like, oh, I've processed this and I've already done the work. But then she said to me, and I can't remember the exact words anymore, it's in a journal somewhere, but she said, grief is an unfolding over your lifetime because you're going to grieve the milestones, right? And when I thought about it, I thought, yeah, my dad never got to meet my son. He wasn't at our wedding. All these amazing things that I want him to know about my son, he doesn't know physically, right? Physically, I believe spiritually that he is there, but I'm also in a place where I can celebrate what I did have with him. And I believe that he does see me and my family. I'm definitely not a medium that I know of. So, but I've had readings from mediums. And so I've had some, that kind of communication with him. But what I really understood that day was that I shouldn't feel bad for where I was. And I wasn't feeling definitely was not the intensity that I felt that very first moment when I heard that he passed away. But it was a different kind of grief. It's kind of this continued unfolding and rolling ball, right? Like through my life where I can see, oh, I really wish my dad was here to see this. Or, oh, I really wish my son knew how funny my dad was and how he'd love to tell jokes and how corny they were and just all this stuff, So it's just kind of an ongoing thing. And so whether you're someone who has recently experienced grief or someone who is looking back and sort of re-experiencing the loss of someone, there's no right or wrong. There is absolutely no right or wrong. And I see grief, just like gratitude, as a practice. And you can practice grief, because the worst thing we can do for ourselves is deny the way we want to process it, right? You can read a book, someone can talk to you, but it's just like you are such a unique being. And that if you have grief to process, whether it's old unprocessed grief, whether it's current milestone related grief, or anything in between, I believe you can consciously process grief and practice it. And some simple ways to do it, I'll give you 5 quick ways, and then we'll dive into our grief and gratitude meditation to help you actually sort of embody it and feel it in your body. The first way is to write about it. I think writing and journaling is one of the most profoundly simple and powerful ways to process emotion. And the reason it works so well, and you've heard me talk about this before on the podcast and in other areas that I talk, is that journaling allows you to actually hear your own thoughts. And when you're writing, you write slower than you think. So your eyes are reading the words as you're writing them. And you are actually it's like you almost allow yourself to step back a tiny bit and see your own thoughts. And then you can reflect on those thoughts and bring a new thought into play that maybe was buried underneath the other two. So it's a way to know what you're thinking. And sometimes just having the thoughts swirling around in your head can feel very heavy and confusing. And when you start writing them down, it feels a lot better. And then it might even release some tears, which is awesome. The second way is to be in it, right? To really honor, like if it's an anniversary, like that day for me with my dad, where I was in this amazing place celebrating and teaching and doing what I love to do, my life's work. And I was feeling sad because of my dad, of the loss of my dad. And I was able to be in it because I wasn't denying it. I just sort of felt it and I let it come, and I journaled about it, and I took a walk on the beach. And then I did number 3, which is the next thing, which is to talk about it. I didn't just say, oh, I'm fine. And I didn't say nothing's wrong. And I didn't even just say, oh, it's my dad's birthday, so I'm a little sad. I actually went into it. I allowed myself to wonder what was happening and why I was feeling it particularly that day. I still don't really know, but it was that, and I wasn't judging it. Okay. Number 4 is honor it your way. Please don't let anyone tell you how to grieve. This is your process. If you feel like you need to not talk about it for a while, that's great. Even though I just said talk about it, in that moment, I knew that if I didn't say it out loud, I'd be holding it in. But if you're in a place where you just want to be alone, go ahead and honor that. Go for a walk, sit in nature, talk to your beloved deceased. Like, I don't know, whatever you need to do, honor it your way. If you need to go sprinkle flowers in the ocean, do that. If you need to write a book, write a book. If you need to put on some crazy music and dance and cry, do that. If you need to take a bath, do that. Just really ask yourself what you need. And then number 5 is go through it, not around it. Going through grief can feel hard, and it can feel risky, and it can feel sad, and emotions are fleeting, right? But when you're feeling them, they feel very real, and they are very real, and they're asking you to acknowledge something. So the best thing you can do for yourself is not to go around it, not to push it down. I mean, definitely decide if you're ready to talk about it, but really trusting that you have the capacity to feel the emotions and be okay. You will survive, as hard as it is. Now, there are, of course, certain levels of grief and acute depression and grief that definitely require some assistance and beautiful support, like this woman, Donna, who, if you are interested, I could definitely pass her contact info along. So make sure you connect with me on Instagram at Elena_Lipson. I'm happy to do that. Sometimes you do need someone to sit next to you and to listen hard and to ask good questions and to help you to figure out a way to honor and celebrate those that you've lost. And, grief is sometimes about the other person. Mostly it is, right? But a lot of times it's about yourself. It's about you. It's about the loss of the dream that you had. It's about the visions of connection that you had. It's about the memories that you wanted to make with someone. And that can hit you out of the blue. And that can just be very subtle sometimes. Like when my son is fishing and I'm standing next to him, like, oh, I wish my dad was here. He would have loved this. Something as simple as that to, I can't believe my dad never met my son. And that could just make me cry right now if I think about it, and just allow yourself to feel that. And grief is not only about death. I know we're talking about death in this particular episode, but grief can come from divorce. Grief can come from a loss of a friendship. Grief can come from a path not taken. Grief can stem from regret. And so grief is one of these experiences that we as humans get to feel. And it's not wrong. And it's not any certain timeline. It's a journey, right? So can you practice grief just like you practice gratitude? Absolutely, I believe you can. And I am personally a very positive person. I love to wear my rose-colored glasses. I see possibility. I see potential. I see the bright side of things. I give people the benefit of the doubt. I mean, I am just that person. So if you want an optimistic friend, that is me. And yet, in the past, I've definitely been someone who doesn't like to stay in those negative emotions very long. But I've learned so much from being a mom, so much from experiencing acute grief in my own life, where I understand that going through that sadness and letting myself feel it and writing about it and talking about it and honoring it my way is very powerful, very healing, very cathartic, and very important to feeling a full life, to feeling full emotions, to trusting that I am not going to all of a sudden burn my rose-colored glasses just because I spend a day feeling sad or an hour feeling sad or however long I need to. So as long as we can be honest with ourselves, as long as you can understand that grief is powerful, grief is transformative, grief is welcome at the table just as much as gratitude is. And if we can just, really understand that. In fact, there's a great book, if your grief is coming from divorce, a book called, oh my gosh, I think it's called Second Chances, but it's by Christina Rasmussen. I can't believe the name flew in my mind and then out of my mind. Oh, Second First. It's called Second First. Thank goodness. Thanks for coming back in there. Christina Rasmussen, Second First. I will make sure that I load up the link in the show notes, but that is an amazing journey. And she is someone who lost her husband and is starting over. But in this book, when you start reading it, you realize it's not just about death, it's about divorce, it's about, all series of losses. But if you're looking for someone who's been there and really has felt it to the depths of her core and knows how to walk somebody through it. In fact, she trains other people now to be trainers and guides for, can't remember exactly the name of her program, but you can check it out. Maybe I'll link that up as well. She's working with hospitals and creating these beautiful programs for people to essentially move through this level of grief and to start over again and what that really takes. So this is not the usual, joyful episode that I love to share, but it's an important one. It's one that my friend Andrew requested. And I'm happy to honor this conversation. I'm sure we can go on and on and on and talk about grief. And I would love to do that at some point in the future as well from a different perspective. I'd love to know what your reactions were and reflections were on this conversation. Was something that I said helpful? Please do let me know. Leave a comment. Make sure you subscribed. But before we wrap up, I want to take you through a brief but powerful meditation. And all you need to do to get started is just to find a place to relax and just start noticing your breath. Maybe take a nice big sigh and just release some of the emotion that maybe has started to bubble up in your body and in your heart and in your throat and in your eyes. And just let it be okay. Let it be there. We're not pushing it away. We're not changing it. We're not transmuting it quite yet. We're just allowing it to be there. So just take a breath. And just find your own nice breath, but a little bit deeper than normal. on the in-breath and out-breath. And just notice if you're feeling any constriction or tension anywhere in your body, because grief can tend to do that. Unexpressed grief can make us tight, especially if there's any unexpressed emotion, unexpressed tears or sobs. They can create tightness in your throat or in your heart or in your solar plexus. Or you might feel tightening around your neck or even around your eyes and your facial muscles. So I want you to just notice without judgment and just continue to breathe into anywhere that feels a little tighter. Sometimes it helps to take a nice deep sigh. And we're just going to start to bring your attention to the top of your head. And just allowing it to soften even just a little bit. With your next breath, bring your attention to your face and your ears. Just allowing your in-breath and your out-breath to bring softness to the back of your eyes, to the muscles around your eyes, to your ears. Be opening your jaw a little bit so your teeth are parted just a tiny bit so you're not clenching your jaw. On your next breath, allow yourself to become conscious of your neck and your shoulders. Sometimes we hold so much tension there, like the weight of the world. That's what grief can feel like. It can feel very heavy. Just allowing your shoulders to drop just a little bit and then a little bit more. The power of breath to relax your body is truly incredible. Next, bring your attention to your chest and your upper back and your heart in the middle. And just invite some softness and warmth into that whole area. Next, notice your arms and your hands. Notice if you're gripping anything tightly. Just let your hands relax. Let your fingers soften. Maybe wiggle them a little bit, releasing any tension. Allowing your arms to just get heavier and softer and warm in your lap or at your sides, or if you're laying down. Just let them soften and get heavier. Next, bring your attention to your belly, your upper belly, your lower belly, and at the same time, your mid and lower back, so that you're aware of your front body, your side body, and your back body. Just allow yourself to release any gripping, any holding, any tension, any tightness. And if it doesn't release all the way, that's okay. You're just inviting just another level of relaxation. It doesn't mean that you are leaving everything behind, it just means that you're softening into the moment. Continue breathing consciously with your next breath. Invite that same sense of warmth and relaxation into your hips, your pelvis, your thighs. Just allowing everything to feel heavy and warm and present. Releasing any gripping, any holding. And then bringing your attention down to your calves, your shins and your feet and your toes, just letting a sensation of tingling and warmth travel all the way down. And then feeling that warmth sort of dripping from the bottom of your feet into the ground below, creating roots of connection to the earth, connecting us to the wisdom, the ancient chemicals, the connection of rocks and soil and layers and layers and layers of history. And as we acknowledge grief today in this conversation, in this meditation, we can also acknowledge the layers of dirt in the history of people and memories and events that it contains, trusting that we are part of it, part of everything. And grief is just one little spoke on the wheel of emotions that we get to experience as humans. And now let your breath come to a place of natural relaxation. And bring your awareness back up to your third eye, your inner mind. And in this place, I want you to begin envisioning a hallway in a house that you're familiar with. Just walk down this hallway. And you're noticing that even though it looks familiar, it's actually not your house or any house that you know, but it feels safe and it feels warm. And you know you're welcome here. And as you look down at your feet and continue taking steps, you see that there's a wall at the end of this hallway facing you. And as you get closer, you notice that there are two doors, one right in front of you to your left, and one right in front of you to your right. And the one on the left has a sign, it's a beautiful sign, a handmade wooden sign with the words grief chiseled in. And as you look at the door on the right, you notice that there is a beautiful wooden sign with the word gratitude chiseled in. And you look at both doors, and instinctively you know the first door to walk into is on your left. It's the door of grief. And you put your hand on the door handle and you take a breath, because you know when you walk in here, it might be sad and it might be intense, and you're okay with that. You're strong and you're ready. So whenever you're ready, you go ahead and open the door, and it gently opens without a creak. And you open the door all the way and you step inside. And in this room, there's a beautiful comfy chair in the middle, just perfect for you to lounge in. And there's a little coffee table sitting next to this chair with some books on it and a few pens. And the most incredible thing about this room is that there's pictures all over the wall. And these pictures contain moments with people that you've lost in your life, with people that you wish you had more time with. You can see these tiny little snippets of memories and moments. And you may start to feel emotions coming up. And you walk to the center of the room, and the breeze coming from the window feels beautiful on your skin, on your face right now, as you feel the heat of emotions rising. And so you sit down in this chair, and you have all the time that you need, and just realize that all you need to do right now is just sit in this chair and just look at the pictures and just let your emotions come up. There might be a few specific moments. There might be many, many, many. This is your room, and it represents the grief that you've been holding in your heart for memories, for experiences not had, for the people that you're missing in your life. It might just be one person. Just go ahead and feel, and just notice the moments. And if there's some tears rising, it's okay. Tears are a beautiful way to release emotions. And when you're ready, go ahead and look at this coffee table and notice there's a beautiful journal in your favorite color, in your favorite kind of pen. And you pick up this journal and the pen, and you open up to a blank page. And on this page, I invite you to write, "I honor my grief." That's it. Just a simple sentence. I honor my grief. Take a nice deep breath and take a moment to look around again and notice the images, the memories, the ones that make you feel welled up with emotion, with sadness for the loss. Perhaps there's even some pictures of sadness itself. Perhaps there's some memories of last goodbyes and goodbyes not said, moments at a funeral, moments that won't happen because that person is no longer there, whether it's through divorce or death or separation. Grief is valid in all areas of life. When you're ready, go ahead and set your journal and your pen down. And you realize it's time to get up and walk back out the door just the way you came. Just close the door behind you, knowing that it's there anytime you want to come back to it. And instinctively, you know that it's time to enter the door of gratitude. So you go ahead and put your hand on the doorknob and open the door. And you walk inside, and it's almost exactly the same room. There's a window that's open, inviting a beautiful breeze in. There's a chair in the middle of the room that's just perfect for you. There's a journal and a pen right next to that chair. And along the wall, every single wall is filled with celebrations, celebrated moments, even if it's just one or two moments from different angles. Celebration of the same people or person that you were just honoring with your grief. And you find yourself smiling, and perhaps even tears of joy are arising, and you find yourself remembering with a warmth in your heart and butterflies in your belly. You find yourself being in the celebration of life. And even if it's come through divorce, even if it's come through separation, there's so much to honor about all experiences. There's gratitude to find in every connection. There are lessons, there are learnings, there are transformations to be had, and that's what gratitude does for you. And so you do the same thing. Instinctively, you know it's time to go sit in that comfy chair made just for you. And just take a moment to look around and to feel the depth of the gratitude for every single moment you had, for every smile, for every tear, for every single thing. Even the bad times, you start to realize that even the quote unquote bad times have made you who you are. They've shaped you into a strong, powerful, brave, courageous, outspoken person that you are today. Even the person who's not here anymore, whether it's through death or divorce or separation, has helped you become who you are, even if it's just the processing of your relationship. And sometimes we can't process a relationship with the person because they're gone. And still, you get to do the work. So this is your time to just be grateful. Grateful, so grateful for every moment that you've had. Grateful for who you have become because of this connection. And just feel that gratitude welling up. However you're feeling it is perfect. There's no right, there's no wrong. And then you notice that there's actually another door inside the room. And so curiosity and instinct tell you to get up and open this door. And guess where this door leads? It leads to the room of grief. And you step into the room of grief and you look around and you just sort of smile, knowing that you've been here. You let yourself honor the grief, you feel it. And you step back into the room of gratitude and you look around and feel a difference, just a slight difference. One is an emotion that needs to be released and processed and maybe cried over. And then you walk back into the room of gratitude and realize they're the exact same room. And you can choose which one you experience at any time. And the amazing thing is that both rooms are necessary and valid. So even though they're almost exactly the same, you can dance between the two rooms as often as you need. And sometimes it's within a matter of minutes. And sometimes it's within a matter of days. And so you go back into the room of gratitude and you sit down in your comfy chair and you pick up the journal and the pen and you open it to a clean page and you write, I honor the power of gratitude. And so from this place, you realize that your body can hold both emotions within a very short amount of time, sometimes almost at the same time. And that's why it's called a dance of grief and gratitude. So whenever you're ready, go ahead and put that journal down, put the pen down, and walk back to the door. And just take a moment to look back and look around. And just know that this transformative power of grief and gratitude is available to you anytime, simply by closing your eyes or writing in a journal or daydreaming about the past and the people that you love and miss. But there's something in your body that feels acknowledged, that feels processed, that feels released once you've had the chance to really be in the room of grief and be in the room of gratitude and understand how intimately interwoven they are. Go ahead and close the door behind you and then stand in the middle of those two rooms and just take a moment to offer a blessing of gratitude for yourself, for the process, and for the people that you were thinking of. And take a nice deep breath. Shake your shoulders a little bit, and when you're ready, come back to your body by wiggling your fingers, wiggling your toes, maybe placing a hand on your belly or one on your thigh. Just come back into your body. I want you to just take a moment and just to realize that grief and gratitude are truly a dance, and that there's no right way to do it. And there's no one that can tell you that your grieving should be done. And there's no one that can tell you that your grieving is not right. Just like gratitude is yours to practice. What I will say is that you can practice grief and you can practice gratitude and come out of the other side having released. And it's an ongoing journey, right? I know there's going to be moments where I think about my dad, where I think about our relative that we just lost, where I think about all of the people that I've lost in my life, and I just think about them and love them and celebrate them and feel sad. I feel sad that they're gone physically, right? But I also believe in spiritual connection. I believe in continuity of life. I don't believe it's done when you die. So that's my personal perspective. You find one that works for you. So I want to thank you for going on this journey with me. I want to thank you for listening to my story of our celebration and of our lost family member and of my dad passing so quickly and how I processed it. And of course, there's so much more that I can talk about, but that's the most important elements are the ones that I shared. And I want you to just really feel permission to practice grief and gratitude the way it feels good to you. And if nothing resonated from what I said, that's okay too. But I do hope that something did resonate for you. So I'd love it if you could leave me a review or head on over to Instagram and let me know there what came up for you. How did it feel to walk into those two rooms? How does it feel now that we've had this conversation? And there's no right or wrong. I'm just curious. I want to know how you're doing, how this was for you, and if you were able to journey there with me. So thank you so much for going there. I appreciate you. I appreciate your willingness to look inward and to process. It's not the easiest thing to do, but it is definitely worth it. You're worth it. Your wellness is worth it. Your life is worth it. Your purpose here to help activate and affect others is worth it. And you can only do that when you're honest with yourself and allow yourself to be as you are and process your emotions so that you can allow yourself to do the same with others. Thank you so much for being here today. Again, this is Elena Lipson, your Divine Self-Care Mentor, and I hope to see you on the next episode of Divine Self-Care Meditations and Musings. You take care of yourself, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you so much for listening and learning about the new Divine Self-Care way of being in your life, business, and the bedroom based on the divine feminine metrics of success: pleasure, play, ease, grace, and a slower pace. If you're ready to bust the myth of overwhelm and tap into an inspired start to each day, I've put together a free video series for you to help you start each day with energy, inspiration, and ignite that inner pilot light which attracts joy, magic, and synchronicity. You can access my 3-step magic morning practice to help you ignite your inner light and attract the abundance that you're craving. Head on over to elenalipson.com/gift. And if you enjoyed this episode, I would so love if you share it with a friend, a sister, a mother, a daughter, and please leave a review. That is how the magic starts to ripple out. Here's wishing you a day full of beauty, magic, and divine self-care. I'll see you next time at the Meditations and Musings podcast.